CB1 Transportation and Street Activity Permit Committee. And we have, get the slides up because I can't remember enough about the meeting.
Slides are not up yet to my seeing it.
Bear with me while we're getting that to remind people. When because we have two different groups of speakers. When they speak, we'll start with a round of all the people who are CB1 committee members to make comments. You do not need to, if you'd rather think about it and speak a little bit later, that's perfectly fine because there'll be time for people to be called on anyway. Anyway, thank you, committee. And you can see we have two different topics tonight. And I'd like to start with the first one, the West Side Highway or Route 9A Mobility and Safety Improvement Study. And I understand, Ian, that you're online to present, and if you'd like to introduce yourself and your two colleagues.
Hi, this is Ian Francis with the New York State Department of Transportation.
You're muted.
Oh, can you?
Actually, online we could hear him, but he might have been low. But once you said he's muted, he muted himself.
Can you hear me now?
Us?
I can hear you.
I can hear Ian also.
We don't hear you.
Oh, they can
Ian,
hear
I'm
me
sorry, but we
online.
can't hear you.
Let me change.
It looks like your mic is open, but the volume's not up.
Is this
Tammy.
better? Can you hear me now?
We hear nothing.
Tammy, can you hear me?
Paper.
Tammy, can you hear Justine?
Can you hear Justine?
Apparently not, Ian. Let me
No,
text her.
I guess they can't hear us.
Yeah, I think so.
I'll send them a note.
Yeah, that sounds good. I'm gonna put
Maybe
yeah.
their speakers are off.
Yep, something's off because I hear you fine.
Hi, can you guys hear me? I can't hear them. Can you hear them?
No, let me see if I could. No, short answer is no. I can't. I'll go on my videos, things on. I cannot hear them now.
Okay.
I'm texting. I'm texting.
Okay.
And it's weird. It's recording. Like I'm seeing. Well,
Would you like assistance
Hi,
with dialing
can
in
you
and
guys-
using a phone instead
Can you guys hear me now? This is Ian.
with video from the computer?
We can send him the dial-in numbers.
Hi, this is
Can
Ian.
somebody
Can you
else
hear me
who's
now?
on remote just test their volume?
It seems like Justine is trying.
I'm trying.
Oh,
I'm
yeah. Can't hear
talking.
Justine.
Also, it might be
I
us.
hear
She's
Ian.
talking.
I was gonna say, because we're trying other remotes.
I think it's you because Ian and I
In general.
each other.
Maybe
I'm
start with
texting.
item 2 then, and then. while
Uh,
we're working on
Is it your, hold on a second. Justine, can you hear what's going on in the room? Yes. Okay, that's good. Okay, that's one, but we cannot hear what's going on you.
Correct.
Zach, can you
I
check the
hear
connection
Ian. though.
for the
I
speakers?
hear Ian.
Just tested it.
Are we sure that the Connect audio is not ours instead of?
Yeah, that's that thing.
Okay, so Justine can hear Ian.
Here, watch this.
She can hear him.
Yeah, she can hear him.
Where's that?
Justine, you can hear Ian?
Yes.
It was in the chat.
Okay, good to know.
Yes.
So it's in here.
You know, I know nothing, but because
So
we
it's
were,
the L. Okay.
because we were able to hear everybody talking.
But you guys cannot hear me. Oh, God. Oh,
But you
glasses.
guys can't hear us.
No, apparently not. I think it's
No.
the room. I think it's them. They got something turned off.
Maybe the speakers aren't on.
Yeah, or it's too low, or they'll figure that. Poor Ian, thank you for your patience.
Hi,
No worries.
thank you. And Justine, we can hear you, so please mute yourself.
Thank you. Done.
Oh, fantastic. You can hear me. It's always fun. Hi, this is Ian Francis with the New York State Department of Transportation.
Can you speak a little?
Okay, hold on. Let me try one thing with my microphone.
Thank you.
Is that better?
Not really.
Yeah, marginally.
Oh, okay, hold on, let me try. Maybe I'll just speak louder. Okay, hi, this is Ian Francis with the New York State Department of Transportation. Is that better? I see you put your thumbs up. Okay, fantastic. Yes, this is Ian Francis with the New York State Department of Transportation. I'm joined online by other members of the department, Jeffrey Rick and Rajat Agarwal. We have a relatively short presentation, but it's an important one. We want to tell you about a study we're doing on Route 9A. Now, am I sharing the screen or do you, because I can, or do you want to share it on your side?
I can share it.
Well, I can, if you don't mind.
Oh, do you want to share it?
I can't, yeah, I would, if you don't mind.
No, please.
Go
Okay,
ahead.
okay. How's that? Can you see it
Great.
now?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, fantastic. All right, so tonight we're going to talk about the Route 9A Mobility and Safety Enhancement Study. Let's need to make my computer work better. Okay. So this is the agenda for the meeting, for my speech. It's we're going to talk about, this study is on Route 9A, and we're going to study it between Battery Place all the way up to 59th Street. A quick look at the agenda, we're going to look at the study will look at community concerns and develop concepts and look at study milestones and involvement activities. So why don't we move on to start moving through the agenda? Okay, so I'm sorry I'm a little flustered, but I'll get it together. Okay, so back to the study. The study is going to take place on the West Side Highway, or Route 9A, from 59th Street to Battery Place. It encompasses a 5-mile-long corridor with beautiful landscape boulevards neighboring the Hudson River Park. While the corridor is a route of travel, it's also a destination for residents and tourists visiting New York City. There are a number of landmarks which not only shape the physical landscape, but also play a significant role in the local community's identity and history. So let's talk about the corridor. To the left, you'll see there's a picture of the corridor circa the year 2000. This is as it heading northbound towards the World Trade Center. Now, over the years, it's apparent that Lower Manhattan is seeing the rise of new residential buildings, parks, and public spaces. Nonetheless, Route 9A has become more congested with vehicles, bicyclists, as well as pedestrians. We've seen major developments in Hudson River Park, Battery Park City, which has provided essential green space for recreation and leisure for residents and visitors of New York City. Earlier I said this is a photo around circa the year 2000, and on the right this is around relatively current photo of the shared use path, the roadway, and you can see it gets a lot of usage. So let's talk about the corridor a little more. The study area is used by many motor vehicles, bicyclists, and pedestrians, which is a vital reason why the study is taking place. The study's goal is to enhance safety and mobility for all users. The study area spans many neighborhoods, including Hell's Kitchen, Chelsea, West Village, Lower Manhattan, and the Financial District. Now, importantly, the location serves a variety of regional, arterial, and local transportation activities and needs, and it's known as an intermodal access provider to 3 Hudson River ferries, passenger liner terminals, excursion ships, and a heliport. It also serves as the terminus point for 5 crosstown bus lines. Okay, so what are some of the concerns we've heard to help motivate us to do the study? To understand these concerns and more are critical because it allows us to address real-world challenges that the community is facing to ensure the study remains relevant and responsive to the needs of the community. So based on feedback and research, here are some of the key concerns we've identified so far. There's a need to reduce crashes. There's safety concerns for pedestrians and bicyclists, especially when they're trying to cross Route 9A from the neighborhoods to Hudson River Park. There's a need to look at resiliency along the park front to guard against flooding and other natural events. Now, there's safety concerns regarding e-bikes utilizing the shared space. And now, if you think of any other concerns, please note them and we can raise them at the end. Hi, Justine, I see your hand raised. If you don't mind, I just have a few more slides and then we can talk. Thank you. Okay, now I did mention resiliency, but these are a couple photos of the Route 9A. It's a beautiful path. And resiliency has been brought to our attention as a major community concern, and understandably, and options and solutions will be explored as the study moves forward. Additionally, we will be looking into local partnerships and subject matter experts that can provide insight and expertise through this process. Now, what are some of our study goals? Many users travel Route 9A, whether they're drivers, bicyclists, pedestrians. As a result, the study will focus on increased mobility and safety needs along the corridor. The study seeks to do some of the following. We want to better understand the current and future needs of the corridor, and evaluate transportation strategies, study and recommend transportation concepts for future analysis, evaluate environmental, natural resources, cultural, and community needs, and we actively want to involve local stakeholders and organizations, transportation groups, subject matter experts, and the public. The goal throughout will be to document the community's needs and priorities throughout the entire study process. So we're going to do the study in 4 phases. Outreach and engagement has already begun as we're visiting the various community groups. We visited Community Board 2 last week, and now we're here with Community Board 1. And we'll visit other community boards as they move forward. Now, phase 1, the existing conditions and corridor visions. As I mentioned earlier, we're introducing the study to elected officials, community boards, and leaders, and the public to gain a better understanding of the project area based on data collection, previous studies, and the community's lived experience. The involvement in this phase will shape the study vision to reflect project needs and community's priorities. Now, phase 2, concept development. After we've documented the existing conditions, then we'll share the options for the corridor based on future transportation needs with stakeholders, the public, agency partners, and the Transportation Partnering Committee. Now, phase 3, the concept refinement. Based on feedback from phases 1 and 2, the study team will develop and share transportation concepts with the Transportation Partnering Committee and interested stakeholders at a sketch level with associated impacts. And finally, in the concept recommendations, phase 4, based on feedback, the study team will refine and finalize concept recommendations with associated impact and high-level costs for the public's feedback. Now, how are we going to do community involvement? As we move forward, it's important to remember that the success of the Route 9A study relies heavily on community involvement throughout the study. Public involvement will weave in throughout the study so that the concepts are reflective of the public's needs. First and foremost, we're looking to engage with individuals and groups during every phase of our study to create an inclusive and open process, fostering mobility and safety for all users along the corridor. Importantly, we're hoping for high levels of involvement for the study since it encompasses such a heavily populated area. Now, for our first group, the Transportation Partnering Committee will be a group of community leaders, technical experts who will help guide, provide input, and share a broad range of perspectives. The Transportation Partnering Committee will play a critical role in the development of the study and will meet 4 times throughout to be advisory and help synthesize feedback. Membership will include local stakeholders, transportation groups, local community boards, and transportation subject matter experts. The second outreach touchpoint will be briefings with community stakeholders. The study team and the project team will present a target local organizations and interested stakeholders for individual briefings throughout the study. Briefings will be focused during phases 2 and 3. And lastly, the public will have the opportunity to take part in public information meetings to ensure that the study addresses the real needs and concerns that matter most to those who were directly impacted by the study or located in or around the study area. There'll be 3 in-person meetings for the public during phases 1, 2, and 4 of the study. Importantly, to broaden the reach of the study, there will be virtual public meetings that will replicate the information provided at the in-person meetings. Now, in-person meetings will be held in an accessible location near the corridor after work hours and will be held in a variety of formats, from presentations to open houses and workshops. As for virtual public meetings, they'll be hosted and recorded on Zoom with live polling and public comment. These are some of the agencies that we're reaching out to join us on this study. The Port Authority of New York and New Jersey, MTA, New York City Parks, Battery Park City Authority, Hudson River Park Trust, New York City DOT, and New York City Planning. Now, here's a schedule we plan. Here's a schedule. We've got you can see the 4 phases are documented. Here we are in phase 1, which is expected to go through the winter of 2025. And phase 2, concept development, will be out and will go through the end of summer 2025. And phases 3 and 4 will take us to the end of the study. It's a total of a 26-month study. So we started in September and we expect to end someplace around the end of 2026. How do we stay involved? As we move toward the conclusion of my presentation, I'd like to take a moment to talk about how you can continue to stay engaged moving forward. We've introduced some important study information today, but this is just the beginning. We're currently working on generating a public website, which will be loaded with all new information, as well as upcoming meeting dates, news releases, and contact information. Additionally, we'll be creating a specific email address for all study-related comments, questions, and thoughts. Additionally, we encourage you to stay connected through email, lists, social media, or other communication channels. This will ensure you remain informed about the latest developments and opportunities to engage with the study. So, I'd like to take questions now. Something just happened.
Thank you. Let me see if
Okay.
anyone in the room has a question, comment they'd like to make. And let's make the committee members first. Is there anyone who'd like to speak? Yeah, Brendan, please.
Sorry, I'm trying to compile all my questions in my head. So a bit of fast feedback. One is, I think having some more concrete dates would be really useful. I would also encourage having dates on when you're actually going to engage with the community. Specifically, I'm thinking us, so that we have an understanding. And then two, question is, does this include, I know our council member is interested in expanding the bike lanes on the West Side Highway. Does this study include that?
As far as specific dates, we are working on the website, and as we hope to get it up soon. It's taking a little more time than we expected, but we will have all the dates on there, and we will send letters to the community board and keep them up to date as to when and where meetings are taking place. As far as we keep putting all options are on the table related to the study. We want to look at all things, and we're listening to the community to see what their thoughts are and their concerns. And we have heard that that the community wants the study to take a look at the bikes and micromobility. So those are things that we will be looking at throughout.
Is a 2-year timeline normal for a study?
It depends on, this is a long corridor with a lot of stakeholders, so 2 years is about the time that it takes.
Okay, I'd like to make a couple of points, just more
Okay.
points of information. One of the concerns really is not just about each of the individual groups or modes of transportation, but about the intermodal conflicts. Whether it's bike with cars, whether it's people with bikes, I mean, it's the conflicts that are a big concern. Making sure everyone has their space, but also their timing, they're free of these conflicts, at least they're minimized. I'm very pleased to hear about potentially a space for micromobility. We've asked for that in the past, but the concern will only increase as we get commercial bikes, which I think in general for going forward for the environment, we know we're looking for that. And there just plain isn't the space in what exists now. It's going to have to increase. And it's just our point of information, CB1 and CB2 over the last couple of months have both passed resolutions asking the New York City Transit to add or consider bus service south of West 14th Street on West Street. So that we have some bus services running the length of West Street, because CB4 does have bus service along its length. We don't have access to go to different locations. It's, I mean, like,
I just want to tag to that. There's a proven, DOT has been really great, New York City DOT with the tour bus permits. So there is a demonstrated need for access from all the way down at the Battery to going up West Street. For all points along there, you can see several locations where there are tour bus stops only. So we are really looking for opportunities to add public transit, which would certainly essentially help get tourists around the city as well as residents, and workers. We're also looking for that to be on both sides of 9A. So you could get up and back, because currently, and I think I would like to know when you're taking a look at this, what kind of coordination with MTA, who I didn't see as a stakeholder on your list, or they were. Okay, great. Because currently there is very little transit west of 8th Avenue, unless you're going to take a vehicle, and not everyone can ride a bike. So finding a way to partner with DOT and MTA, I'm never going to get a subway on the west side, west of 8th Avenue, but I can get bus stops. And having a way to take a look at that would be really important.
We have invited MTA to be part of our agencies in coordination, and that is something we will look at.
I'm not going to mention anything about resiliency because I know you got a letter today that included notes with that. I'm going to leave that for Alice Blank to go over. That'll be a little bit quiet.
yes, well, let me have the last committee member with a hand up, Justine, and then we can go to Alice.
Thank you so much. And yeah, thank you. Sorry, I just was putting my hand up to get in line, Ian, but I wasn't gonna interrupt your thing. But anyway, I just want to make a point that when you talked about the interaction of bicycles and cyclists and pedestrians and cars, you only were mentioning crossing West Street. As somebody who would routinely or still, well, I can't say I still do it so regularly, but I do ride from Battery Park all the way up to the George Washington Bridge along that bike path. And I walk on it, run on it, whatever. So it is difficult to manage, even though you've got a walking path. Not everybody stays on the walking path. But when you are on the bike path and you have electric vehicles, whether they're city bike or delivery vehicles, but it's mostly the city bikes that are electric, that zip past you, it's terrifying. There's no noise and they go past you, and it's something to be aware of as you're doing that, to have some sort of awareness that there is danger on the bike path as well as danger crossing the West Side Highway, and having some sort of accommodation or addressing that, whatever that turns out to be. I don't know, but whatever that turns out to be is something. And I
Okay.
don't know what micro something, yeah, you mentioned it, Betty mentioned it. I don't know what that is. What is
I
that?
should stop using transportation terms. Well, micromobility is e-bikes, e-scooters, and
Oh, okay.
along those lines. But I
Okay.
guess that also contributes to the intermodal conflicts.
Yes.
that
Yeah,
we're
it
dealing with.
definitely does. So yes, and I know Betty mentioned it. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
I want to mention, it has come up multiple times. It's also family groups versus people who are exercising. So even if you're talking about pedal bikes, you have the children, you have the elders who were riding versus the people who are out there for exercise in their 20s and 30s. There's a lot of stress due to that because of their levels and intents are just so different. That space is needed for that. And the people who use hand cycles, they also just plain don't have the space because those are bigger bicycles, but very necessary for certain populations. With that, I will go on to Pat. Let's let Alice speak because it's read the
Resilience.
resiliency, but then we'll go to Pat because her hand was up first.
Okay, and also I have my hand up.
Yeah, you're right, Pat.
Okay. Thanks very much, Ian. I am the chair of the Environmental Protection Committee, so I'm coming at this from that angle. And I'm part of a group that's been pretty vocal about the need for resiliency planning on the west side. It's a critical part of what I hope this will become the study. I'm concerned that even the name of the study doesn't highlight resiliency, and the committee that you formed, the Transportation Partnering Committee. I really, really want to stress the critical importance that any kind of resiliency measure that is going to indeed come to this artery or next to it will be incredibly important in whatever planning you're doing. So I just really hope that this becomes not an afterthought that you were asked to do by, and I point to these letters. I assume, have you seen today's letter from November 4th from your state Commissioner Dominguez? But these are letters that have been signed by every elected in our neighborhood.
To Dominguez.
To Dominguez and from Dominguez, sorry. Not in that order. Have you seen the letter from November 4th yet?
I did see a letter a couple of days ago, but November 4th was 2 days ago, so it's probably
Yeah.
the same letter.
Well, the point being that this is a letter that again is signed by really every elected all along the west side and all the way up, and including Gerald Nadler and all of our assembly people and senators, with hopes that you really will highlight resiliency. And so I just have a couple of suggestions. One is to consider, if possible, the renaming of this committee as the Transportation and Resiliency Planning Committee, so that resiliency really is a focus of this work that you're doing. There has been a great deal of work that has already been done on resiliency on the west side after Sandy with Rebuild by Design. There were programs and thoughts that were put forth that I hope you at State DOT will be looking at. That would be an incredibly important resource. And with your team, if you could include DEP and DEC as part of the team. In other words, I really think you need environmental experts and folks who are really dealing with the resiliency measures. And lastly, also the federal government, what may be left of it, in terms of the Army Corps lands. This, of course, was the thing that inspired the sort of community board asked for a West Side Resiliency Task Force to look at resiliency on the west side, came from the Army Corps plan. So I don't know where the federal planning goes in here or if at all, but they do have plans for walls marching up this very artery. So, I guess the stress here is resiliency, the potential renaming or rethinking of this committee's work, and the fact that we really need to have included in the team, engineers, environmental experts, landscape architects, people who can really speak to resiliency as a very critical component of how this can get stressed. I mean, the sewage, all of the underground utilities, where, how are we going to be able to advantage ourselves when you're redoing 9A, if that should come to pass? What an amazing opportunity to rethink what's going on underneath it vis-a-vis resiliency. It's critical. So that's it. I hope that covers, and anybody who's interested, all the letters and our resolution, thanks to you all. Thanks on the table. Thanks, Ian.
Thank you. We've written it all down, and we will. Thank you.
If you'd like to go.
Yeah, thank you. So hi, Ian. My name is Pat Moore, and I live in Greenwich South, which is a little community that's between Battery Park City and Fidei. We are west of Broadway, and we're east of the West Side Highway. And we're always treated like the ugly stepchildren. So I've lived there for 49 years. Before 9/11, we had, if you're going downtown, if you're heading south on the West Side Highway, we always had a left-hand turn either on Liberty Street or on Albany Street, both. So they have both been taken away. And if you're heading south, you have to go all the way down to the Battery and then swing around and come back up to get into Greenwich South, and in particular to get onto my street, which is Cedar Street, which is the only street in our community that heads west. Do you have an idea of where I am?
I think I do.
You know,
I didn't hear that last.
T Street. Liberty.
I heard street. I think I've walked down there a few times.
Liberty is the south side of the World Trade Center site.
And you're
So
a few blocks north of that.
No, I'm south of that.
Oh, you're south of that. Oh, okay.
Community south of the World Trade Center site. We're from Liberty all the way down to the park. And
Oh.
again, we're in Battery Park City and Fidei. And we're always left out of everything. We're the ugly stepchildren. We have, before 9/11, we always had a left-hand turn off of West Side Highway into our community on Liberty Street and on Albany Street.
In Albany.
Okay, so now, 9/11 happens, they rebuild everything, they take away they close off Liberty Street. We can't turn onto Liberty, and we also can't make a left-hand turn heading south onto Albany. So you have to go all the way down to the Battery, to the park, and then come back around and go uptown to be able to make a right-hand turn on Rector. Does this I can always, we can show
No.
you this on a map.
I know what you're talking about. I used to work at
Oh,
115
baby.
Broadway for a while.
For the last 23 years, I have been asking for a left-hand turn heading south, a left-hand turn onto Albany Street. Because other than that, you have to then make a right-hand turn into Battery Park City and do a U-turn to go across the highway to go across Albany Street. And I know it's a little confusing,
But it's also critical to understand that 5 World Trade Center is funded to be built, and that will be a tower of over 900 units. And so you need to have access to that area and restored access, much as we did pre 9/11.
Okay.
and again, we can show you on a map.
Well, I can see the map on the screen, and I understand.
South of Liberty, all the way down to the Battery, and we were between Battery Park City and Broadway.
Okay. Yes.
It goes east.
Albany Street goes east,
You can
yeah.
only travel on that portion if you go all the way through from Battery Park, because there's
Yeah. You have to be, you make a U-turn in Battery Park City and
You
go
either have to
across,
make a U-turn through Battery Park City
go to the bottom. come back,
or
Yeah.
be northbound on 9A.
and make a right-hand turn.
But the stretch of Albany that's like just east of West Street, can no one drive on that? I guess.
No.
Yeah, you can drive on it.
But you can only get there.
You can only get there if
from
you
Battery
go,
Park.
right, if you
You
go
can
over.
only get there from the northbound, not the southbound.
Right.
Oh, from the northbound.
Either the northbound, or if you're in Battery Park,
Oh, so you
you
want-
can go straight across.
I see.
So
And
we, right,
And the problem is what it does is it directs an inordinate amount of traffic
into Battery
Battery.
Park
into Battery
to make
Park
a U-turn.
Yeah.
for people making U-turns.
Okay.
And
Thank
it's
you.
also what can be addressed. When my husband was dying and we had to go to the hospital every day, and we had to take a cab and we were coming downtown on West Street, we would have to spend extra money to go all the way down to the bottom to come back up again. It's not right. We should be able to make our turn into our community.
Would have to cross over the northbound side of West Street.
I'm sorry, yeah,
It
the
did
left,
before.
yes.
It did before.
It
right?
did before.
Yeah.
It did before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have noted that. That is something we will look at during.
And
this
I've been
study.
asking for 23 years, since 9/11 for this. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Moore.
Great.
Well,
And let's have Laura.
Hi, thank you, Betty, and I'm thrilled that you guys are doing this study. I use the park almost every day, and I have a few questions. Are you doing pedestrian counts?
We will do spot counts throughout, whether it's pedestrian counts, bike counts, or vehicle counts. We are gonna do some counting, but we're also gonna use some existing counts where they're available.
Can I just say that it's really critical to do pedestrian and runner counts on Saturday mornings and other weekend times and at this time of year. Like I was there on Saturday and it was mobbed. It's really dangerous. And in fact, Alice was running there. I'm sorry to speak for you, Alice, but Alice got injured running there because it was so crowded and she had to dodge another runner. So this is like I'm the landscape architect on the community board. My name is Laura Starr, and we do a lot of urban design work like this. I've worked on a lot of park design. I worked in Central Park. It's critical to do pedestrian and bicycle counts here on, the times of day when people are out commuting and recreating. To not do that would be an incomplete study. And one way to look at this is if you think of the Central Park drives and how wide they are and how they were closed to cars years ago so that people could run and cycle on them. Now imagine our burgeoning population in Lower Manhattan with all these new buildings, all these people needing to recreate, and we have this like measly bike lane and measly place to walk. Like compare that to what other populated areas in New York City have, and you'll see it's completely under capacity. So I really I hope you'll come back to us with your schedule for doing the counts.
What motivated the study is that the path was built more than 30 years ago, and it was a different environment then. So now that the environment has changed, it's motivated us to come back and take another look at what's going on there. And we are going to take a look, and everything is on the table. So we will.
Okay, but I'm just asking for for you to come back to the community with the actual detail of how you're conducting the study and the counts, when, and the methods. So that's one thing. The second thing is, are you guys doing this in-house or are you using a transportation consultant?
We have a transportation consultant on board,
And
HDR.
who is that?
HDR. is the
HDR.
consultant.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. They're very good.
Yes.
So, okay. And then I also just, having worked on the Big U and also studied this area a lot for resilience, I want to back up what Alice was saying. And, it's probably going to take some pretty radical thinking to make this area more flood resistant and to also potentially enlist it in the flood protection for the neighborhood beyond. And I think all the systems she mentioned, it really does need to be a comprehensive study. So, so I just applaud it and urge you to do this scientifically and bring the data to the community.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Now, thank you for waiting, Delia Gold. If you'd like to speak, like unmute yourself. Thank you.
Yes, if you could share what the timeline and possibilities look like of the implementation of the study, the implementation of the proposed changes.
Right now, we're doing the study. It's coming up with a vision, and they're going to be short-term, medium-term, and long-term visions that come out of it. The short terms, we will try to get those on as quickly as possible, the low-hanging fruit, and the others will be developed as budget becomes available. So I can't give you a hard time frame on the long terms, but the short terms, we will try to get those going as quickly as possible.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Thank you. I'm not seeing any other hands up. Let's let Carrie go, and then, Rose, is your hand still up? Okay, Carrie, and then Tim.
Hi, Ian. Thank you for your presentation. It sounds like maybe you have some low-hanging fruit in mind. Is there is there already some idea of what that low-hanging fruit is?
Not right, nothing right now, but we can, we just started about a month and a half ago. So we are still pulling ourselves together. Like I told you, we're still getting our website in order, but we will get, as we see things that can be addressed quickly, we will get them addressed as quickly as possible.
And when you identify those, will you be coming back to the community board to present those, even though a final study and a final recommendation isn't in place?
Yeah.
Or what's the process for the low-hanging fruit when you can identify it quickly?
Well, that's the Transportation Partnering Committee. We'll discuss it with them, and they will help us look through these and see what, since it's representative of the community boards and different organizations, we will work through them and present it to them.
Okay, so maybe I just misunderstood. I thought maybe there was some other outside of this study, if you identified something that was.
If we have a if there's something that can be addressed quickly and we have a project already in place, we might be able to do a change order and get it done that way. That's a quick fix, low hanging fruit.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So I think I'm next, while Betty's just chatting. One of the things that we fought hard for in Lower Manhattan were the turn lanes on 9A on the southbound road, starting at Chambers, going all the way down to protect pedestrian safety and bicycle safety and the interactions at all those intersections at Chambers, Murray, Warren, Vesey, Liberty, Albany. I think I got them all. And it's, and West Thames, but West Thames doesn't have its own separate turn lane necessarily. I'm not sure if it's all the way through. So it's really important to us to make sure that pedestrian safety and how the turn lanes interact are really taken into account. It is especially critical for things that you may not be thinking of, AKA how often Battery Park City is cut off from the rest of New York due to parades, annual events, all kinds of things like that. It is really important that as many access ways in and out are possible. We have longstanding looked for ways with DOT, sorry,
Casey.
I mean, no, not Casey, but Kate. And the team there to take a look to try and improve safety along the southern part of Battery Park City, due to the amount of tour buses and the commercial parkers in the middle of the streets and things like that. So the turning and the in and outs are really important now more than ever, considering the fact that World Trade Center campus, which was promised to be an open campus with through streets, is actually more of a chock block than it used to be. It used to be that that Bessie Street was a through street, Liberty was somewhat of a through street, Albany was a through street, and Church. So there was a lot more connectivity. Bessie is now completely not. It's, privatized. Fulton, which was promised to be opened, is shut. So it is really important when you're taking a look at the turns in and around that, yes, Port Authority will look at its little niche. Battery Park City will look at its niche. And what the community board is looking at is how they all connect together for both residential, tourists, and commercial. And I ask that you make a specific presentation and talk about those turns to make sure that they are protected for pedestrian safety. Especially because you have, at Chambers, you have a high school, at Warren and Murray, you have a elementary and middle school, then you have the ball fields that go all the way down to Bessie Street. So there is a huge amount of younger people that need to be protected. We don't have crossing guards in Lower Manhattan anymore, so. Yeah.
Okay. I've noted all of that. Thank you.
And Alice, if you'd like to.
Yeah, thanks, thanks a lot. Ian, I just had one more question. Could you just describe what exactly you're doing right now with the Battery Park City Authority in terms of the crossing of 9A and how you are working with them, and just give us a little bit of an update on that, or at all?
The Battery Park City Authority. The Battery Park City Authority is part of the Transportation Partnering Committee, and we're going to have a meeting relatively soon that will include them. They are going to be represented. We've already spoken to them. So as you're looking to find out how we're working with them, they are going to be part of the committee and giving us input.
You haven't met with them yet about their plans, their resiliency plans to cross Route 9A at Harrison and North Moore Street, that area? Have you had that conversation yet with them?
That is part of their resiliency project to protect the Battery Park City. That project is moving along. That isn't necessarily part of the study, but it is part of the larger corridor, so it does incorporate it a bit. They are still looking. They haven't, as to the best of my knowledge, they haven't given us the final plan as to how they're going to cross, but to protect Battery Park City, there will be a crossing. Whether it's swing gates or pop-up gates, they haven't gotten to a final determination yet. But they are meeting with the regional office.
Well, that's good to know. Thanks very much. Look forward to hearing how this sort of unit will be working together on that part of the project. Such an important piece of 9A and the neighborhood down here. Thanks.
You're welcome.
Okay, if there are no more hands up, then Ian, I'd like to thank you very much for your presentation. And we will get back to you with, really a great thank you for the outreach. And I'm very excited that there's going to be involvement with the community in each of the quarters as we move forward. And thank you, as frustrating as it is for everybody to get involved so early so people can be at the ground floor as you kind of set what the study is going to be. But we'll send you some of the things that CB1 has, letters and resolutions that relate specifically to Route 9A, so you have a better background about what this community and CB has been doing.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Have a wonderful evening.
You too.
Bye now.
Bye.
We should also send him data from like downtown, on the population growth downtown.
Yes, and if anybody has any other ideas of what they'd like to send, please send it through the office. And
It's-
Kevin, Working on
We have census data and a report that was done in the community board office and changes from 2010 to 2020 on the census alone, which would be good. And the problem that we're gonna have that's kind of on the nebulous side right now is the 7 commercial to residential conversions on water, which will only affect kind of the bottom, but 5 World Trade is huge. That is a massive building that will accommodate literally thousands of people with deliveries and needs and groceries and everything that goes with that.
That's why I think anything big like that, such as the bus route, and resolutions, and all this. That's what I-
And potentially the building that is gonna be
Yeah.
built at IPN.
IPN, right.
Yep.
Right, again, there are resolutions on all these things that I agree should be kind of packaged together as background that they should be considering. The other thing I'd be interested in, if anyone has any great ideas about partners that you did not see on the list, you think should be included and informed about
You mean
this.
like
You mean like the
ENCC?
West Side Task Force?
And the website.
Well,
that's one.
I think some of those things that probably should be on the list of groups that should be considered by them.
DEP.
Yeah, DEP and
DEC.
So you already mentioned.
Yeah.
those.
and the mayor's office of
You're gonna do
climate and environmental justice.
Justice,
I
yeah.
think that DEP and DEC will be on the back end, not the front end, and Kate can tell me if I'm right or wrong on that, when they start to format plans. If they're looking at transit, they're not looking at DEP, DEC until they get quality.
That's the whole point, is that should be looking
You should,
at.
Yeah.
you don't want to get halfway through
Yeah.
the process and then say, oh, whoops,
Yeah.
Well, that's why they should.
whoops, we need a pump station.
Because there is a list of partners, and it should help be added to that, as Alice brought up.
To you, should we send it to you?
No, it's on those slides.
No, I,
Send it to the
you,
office.
yeah,
Yeah, send it to
get
Zach.
that,
Yeah.
and you'll follow up.
Send it to Zach for all the, oh my goodness gracious, new phone.
And we can just collect it all and put together what should go out.
I turned off.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Now, ready to move on to item number 2, everybody? Done. Yeah. I get my slides, so you can get it under control.
Yeah.
Just give us a minute, jump in.
I'll just save it on your phone. I haven't quiet yet.
Come and help you.
I tried quiet.
It's kind of just gonna let it-
Lucy, are you going to carry this whole presentation?
Yes.
So long as it's not full.
Where would you like me to?
No, anyway, the polls, where the microphones. are.
Okay. Please take it.
Speak to that, you're just fine. There's,
You can't help me.
Unless you do that.
and you, well, I'm not going to Zach, you the slides. Just
Yeah,
I can figure this out. I'm a grown adult.
give him a minute. and he'll-
No problem.
I got it. I'll figure it out.
You want me to text you, see if it works?
No, I'm good. I'm good. Figure it out. Oh. Yeah, do not disturb. I found it. Yes. Hey, look, J1 new phone.
Thank you, Casey, whenever you'd like to start.
Okay, thank you, everyone. My name is Casey Grell. I'm from DOT's Public Realm Unit, and I'm going to be presenting an update on both the street improvement projects that DOT has undertaken and the traffic study that DOT is currently working on as part of the larger Chinatown Connections project, which is a joint project between New York City EDC, New York City DOT, and New York City Parks. Let's go into the agenda, which is the next slide. So as I said, we'll give an update on the 5 street improvement project locations that are listed here, and we'll go into more detail as we go through the presentation. And then I'll go through an update on the traffic study. This is a pretty data-heavy section of the presentation, so there's quite a bit to go over.
Unless it.
I would try to do it from memory.
No, we're still there.
I probably should. Don't.
Did you close the tab?
Did I close it?
That's not good.
I can't find it. Sorry.
If you were testing, you speak to anything.
So the traffic study will go over like an overview and the timeline. We'll also go over existing conditions, which is essentially all of the data we've collected so far. We'll also go over next steps for some of the scenario modeling that we're doing as part of the traffic study. That's looking at both Park Row reopening scenarios and the Kinloch Square reconstruction and reconfiguration project. And then we have next steps.
Was this the project where we had questions about, when the studies were done?
Yes. We got that. And I have both. I got it in front of me and I'm screen. Perfect. Thank you.
Same thing.
Yes.
Perfect. Okay, yes, next slide, please. So updates on the street improvement projects, which are known as SIPs internally. Next slide. So the first one we want to give an update on is the Park Row sidewalk and bike lane. So this is this area of Park Row right outside of Chatham Towers, Chatham, which one's on the?
Towers.
Towers.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, because it's on the east side.
On the east side sidewalk of Park Row, so Chatham Green. So at this location, we look to kind of clarify the road and sidewalk use for all users. So as part of a markings update, we were able to create a parking protected bike lane to extend the bike lane more formally along the curb and create parking spaces, legal parking spaces for NYPD that would provide protection for this.
Sorry, did you just say that you expanded the bike lanes to put them on the curb? So you're putting bikes on?
Next to the curb. So the parking spaces protect the curbside bike lane. And the dedicated parking spaces also keep the sidewalk and bike lanes clear from vehicular obstructions. The project is currently in implementation. I think you can see in the photo here that was from this morning. The green paint is down, the art installation and the painted sidewalk expansion is complete. We have very few final bike path markings to be completed, but this location is basically substantially complete at this point. So we'll go to the next slide.
Oh. Preview it, gotta download it.
You click on open with, what are your options?
Or. Yeah, I would just download it, honestly. Just gonna make your life that much easier. Why isn't it showing up? Well, while he's doing that, here's a fun question for you. How many parking spaces were created by NYPD?
It was clarifying 15 along the new parking protected bike lane.
And where did the balance of the cars go?
That was up to our partners at NYPD. We didn't create new spaces anywhere else. So they found new spaces within their already existing areas or parking outside of the secure zones.
Okay. Thank you.
Jason, you said you had a flash drive?
Yeah, do you have a PDF you want to open?
You might want to stop sharing and then just open it to start again.
I know, I can see it on his screen.
Yeah, it's like really bizarre that it's not working. Want me to try on mine?
There we go.
Yeah, it looks good.
This is where we were? Yep, front slide. So that was that location. The next location is the new sidewalk at the pinch point, which is where the Brooklyn Bridge ramp comes in. Park Road is actually narrower in this section. So the existing conditions were a shared space between bikes and peds along this little stretch of Park Row, which created a lot of conflicts for people coming from the bridge, traveling to Chinatown, and also the high bicycle usage along this path. So we worked with our internal concrete crews and NYPD to relocate a small wall and some of the fencing that separates Park Row from the off-ramp, which will allow us to construct a fully separated sidewalk at sidewalk grade with a standard curb, and would actually convert the existing shared space, which you can see on the photo on the left, into a dedicated bike path. So pedestrians and bikes will be separate throughout the entire corridor. This project is in construction. We anticipate it to be complete by the end of the year. The wall is complete. The fence should be relocated in the next week or two. And then our crews will return to do construction on the sidewalk, following all that work, but hoping to be done by the end of the year. The wall was actually the most complicated part. Next slide. This is at Frankfurt Street and Park Row, on the north southern end of the corridor. There was a new sidewalk and pedestrian ramp, which was completed as part of the Brooklyn Bridge Rehabilitation Project, that recently reopened. The sidewalk on the southeast side. A wayfinding sign foundation was installed as part of that work, also at the corner to provide more directions for all the people that are coming off the bridge and coming up from the financial district and Seaport area. The foundation is installed, the installation of the sign follows and we're hoping to have done in early 2025. We have to fabricate the signs and then print and install the actual maps that go on the wayfinding sign, so there's a little bit of a delay, but it's part of our standard sequence. In 2025, there will be a new northwest bound protected bike lane on Frankfurt Street connecting to Gold, so cyclists have direct connections between Gold and Park Row. That was delayed just due to complexities with the repaving and the extra markings work needed, and we're planning on that being installed in summer of 2025 or early summer of 2025.
Have we seen the map on that?
That was presented in the original presentation to the community boards. I don't have a copy of the plan in this deck. We'll go to the next slide. In general, there were 4 art sites that were selected and installed as part of this project, where we did temporary art installations. 3 of them have been completed or substantially completed. The painted neck downs at St. James are complete. You can see them in the top right image. The new pedestrian space, painted pedestrian space on Park Row, you can see in the bottom right. And then the barriers and stairway were painted by the same artist to bring people down from the Brooklyn Bridge into Chinatown, and that was also completed. The only outstanding item is art that's going to be installed on the fence at the Brooklyn Bridge space at Frankfurt Street. And that's expected in either late 2024 or early 2025. We were waiting for the fence to be finally installed, and then we need to coordinate with the artist to get the vinyl art for the fence printed and then installed. So that's upcoming. We'll go to the next slide. The final SIP location is the bus boarding island and the two-way bike path at the northern end of Park Row as you approach Chatham Square. The boarding island is complete, the bus stop signage has been completed, and the two-way bike path markings are mostly completed. There's still some work to be done. And we are currently evaluating for additional bike traffic calming treatments, such as rumble strips, signage, and markings above our standard treatments for floating bus islands at two-way bike paths. We need to do a little bit of engineering work to get those drawings completed and then submitted to a contractor for installation. So there's going to be 2 stages of markings as part of that project.
For the artwork, are y'all like, what's your sense of impact? Like, how do you know that it's actually bringing people down to Chinatown? Like, how are y'all thinking about that? Are y'all gonna go back and do a study to understand, like, is traffic increased, or like, I'm just thinking of like the amount of money that we probably spend on artwork versus like whether or not it's actually like worth the while.
Great question. So we are going to be doing updated pedestrian counts where we have pre-existing pedestrian counts. Unfortunately, just because hindsight's 2020, we didn't collect pedestrian counts directly on Park Row at the bridge, so we won't be able to do a direct comparison there. But we are going to be taking active counts at the intersection of Park Row and Chatham Square to see if pedestrian volumes have increased. That's one way to do it. The other way to do anything is just based off of observations. It's not as, concrete data, but it is a way to judge if there are additional people coming up off of the bridge. But we are hoping to see an increased amount of pedestrians at the square itself, meaning that people have come up from other locations.
What led to the decision to do that? Was it to beautify the area? Was it to increase traffic? Was it, you've seen this work successfully in other locations? Like, just trying to understand the justification.
Yeah, I think there was multiple reasons for doing the artwork. One, to make it feel like you can actually come into the Park Row area, because it did feel very hostile prior to that. The stairway was really to bring people directly off of the Brooklyn Bridge to say, this is a good place to go, and you can come up into the Chinatown area. In general, just for other areas, we do artwork for a variety of reasons, either just to increase a sense of place or just to increase, like beautification of the area. So some of the other locations maybe had like more of that type of a treatment, but for the Park Row treatments, it really was to bring people from the bridge up to Chinatown.
Question. So the
Can we let them finish first, and then take questions?
barriers.
Can we finish? We usually don't ask questions.
Yeah, I can keep going and we can circle back. Totally happy to do that. As part of the bus boarding island, we are looking at additional treatments to install on the island to increase comfort for bus riders. We've started conversations with the DOT's bus shelter franchisee, which is JCDecaux, to survey for a bus shelter to be installed. We'll also look to add either city benches or leaning bars, which are standard DOT items that we have. We're just looking to figure out if a bus shelter is feasible before we look to site city benches and leaning bars, because we don't want to make sure where we put a city bench precludes the bus shelter, because that's the ultimate goal is to the bus shelter. So those are to come. Bus shelters are a little bit more hefty of infrastructure and require some more conflict checking, especially with underground utilities. So that's still to come. Next slide. And then just in general, there's been a lot of concerns brought up about safety with the floating bus island. We just want to know that this is a treatment that we do citywide, where buses stop at an island separated from a two-way bike lane. We do understand that there's concerns that this does increase, create a new crossing for bus riders where you do have to cross like a new part of the roadway to access the bus stop. But there's, gains of having a continuous two-way cycle path in the roadway that gets bikes off the sidewalk, but that's countered by needing to provide a safe space for bus passengers to wait. So there's always gives and takes with street design, and this is a treatment we do citywide, and we haven't seen any increase in crashes or injuries at these types of locations where we've done them elsewhere, and we don't foresee that happening at this location either, but we'll continue to monitor and make any necessary changes as feasible.
Wasn't I hit at that location?
By a bike on a sidewalk, I believe.
Also, I see people get hit by cars on the bicycles are going and the cars are turning. They don't think but that's in Brooklyn, over at Skimmerhorn. That area.
Yeah, that's very
And White,
location.
just like a very confusing traffic pattern over there.
The two-way bike path, yeah.
Yeah, there's a two-way bike path and then cars turn. They don't know to look both directions.
Yeah.
And then when the grocery store is getting a delivery, bikes are going around it and cars are still in a turn. And it's just like really scary. And I'd hate to see that happen anywhere else in the city.
Yeah, so we'll be continuing to monitor this location, and we'll be looking at any additional treatments as necessary as we go forward.
Can I,
Sorry.
if you're gonna ask questions, I have one about this particular. I have to go back to the slide later.
Is there daylighting, but like where the bus island is there enough space for the cars to see the bikes? Like, some of the bus islands are all the way to the crosswalk, but some of them, if they slid back that 10 feet or 8 feet or whatever, some have a daylighting function. They don't go all the way to the crosswalk.
Yeah, actually going all the way to the crosswalk does create daylighting because it makes sure no one can park there kind of in front of the island. But we have to make sure there's no infrastructure. With the current configuration of Park Row being closed, there's very little cars turning across the bus island. So it's something we'd have to take into consideration with the larger traffic study for any reopening scenario. So moving into the traffic study.
You can start, was that a data point, the one you just said? In the traffic study for consideration?
We'll have to look at new conflicts introduced by any reopening scenario, which is in the traffic study outline. So we'll go to the first slide of the traffic study, which is timeline. So the traffic study was scoped in spring of 2024. Data collection occurred in May of 2024. We completed existing conditions analysis after processing all the data in September of 2024, which is the bulk of what we'll be presenting tonight. The Park Row reopening vehicular demand analysis, which I have a slide about, is currently in progress, and we are expected to complete it in November of this year. We'll then move into the proposed condition analysis, where we're modeling scenarios in hopefully to complete by November 2024, potentially going into December, just depending on the scope of those analyses. Looking to have interim results of the full study in December before issuing a final technical report at the end of the year or in early 2025. To the next slide. So just for overview, the traffic study is looking at 3 general scenarios which will be studied. We will be looking at the Kinloch Square reorganization as part of a larger capital project. We will also be looking at only a Park Row reopening scenario, which is mostly looking at Park Row reopening under today's conditions. And then we'll be also modeling both of those scenarios together to understand how they both interact. The study is analyzing vehicular, bicyclist, and pedestrian counts. It is analyzing travel time and travel speeds for vehicles. We're looking at parking and loading operations, specifically within the square, at Chatham Square. We'll be looking at changes in travel patterns under the Park Row reopening scenarios. We expect traffic to move from adjacent streets to utilize a Park Row reopening. We'll also be looking at changes in conflict points between modes of travel, both pedestrian, cyclists, and motorists, with any changes in traffic operations. And just for context, the study provides data and context to be used in decision-making, but the study itself does not make a determination. So there's not like an output from the traffic study that's you have to know for any of these. It just provides context and data to make and aid decision-making. Next slide. Just some general guidelines for our data collection requirements. We conduct counts that are on approved count periods per the DOT traffic count calendar. So every year DOT creates an approved count calendar that takes into consideration holidays, school sessions, to ensure that traffic counts are occurring as close to existing and typical conditions as possible. We count at least one weekday and both weekend days for these types of studies. We count at least 4 peak periods, potentially more depending on the situation. And the counts typically occur midweek with school in session to account for typical commuter patterns for both workers and students. We do some summer session counts if the land use is critical to the study, i.e. we're studying like beach traffic, so we would do that during the summer. The current traffic study does meet all of these standard guidelines, and these are the guide studies citywide and are reviewed by DOT. So this is what we use for all ULURP actions, redevelopments, DOT projects, etc. Next slide, please. So this is getting into the existing conditions section. So this is the existing traffic counts. The counts occurred in May of 2024 on Wednesday, Saturday, and Sunday. All data that's presented in the remainder of this presentation outlines conditions as they were at that time. So this is like May, essentially. The following slides that I'll use that go into some details about some of the operations. We'll use the PM peak hour as a representative period for discussion. There's too many peak periods to show everything. The PM period has the highest volume of users or the highest vehicular volume traffic. So we're using that as a representative period. And the final report will include a summary of the data for all peak periods. And you can see the count periods and the peak periods that we both counted and are analyzing below the chart. The chart shows all the volumes of each roadway user in the 4 peak periods with the peak volume per mode highlighted in yellow, if that makes sense. So pedestrians, 11,000 pedestrians in the midday was the peak period for pedestrians. Cyclists was PM, cars was PM, trucks midday, and bus riders PM. Next one. So data quality control. We did some extra data quality control because the counts were conducted when the Trump trial was in session. So we wanted to ensure that the trial did not impact the traffic data collection. So the weekday data was collected on a Wednesday, which was a break day in the Trump trial. So it was not actually occurring. We evaluated historical data from the study area that included 2016 to 2023 for comparison, and we did not find any impacts of the trial on data collection. The only major change that we noticed from the historical data was Worth Street. The traffic volume historically on Worth Street was very low, which we attribute to the major reconstruction, which probably reduced vehicular volume in the past. Pedestrian and bicycle volumes were also unaffected, and we have additional data in the appendix if you want to look at it. The chart on the right outlines the pre-study average that we collected from each of the study intersections that we have listed here, compared to the traffic study counts that I showed in 2024, and the average change, the change from the average. Most locations are slightly higher within a single percentage point, not getting into those double digits, except for Worth Street, where you see like 100% more traffic, but that's to be expected because DEP had the roadway ripped up quite substantially for a very long time. So we definitely see that as like an impact here. But in general, all the other locations that we counted are within the realm of being very similar to historic data and in general are actually higher than most of them. Next slide, please. So getting into like who are the street users within the Chatham Square area. This is looking at Kinloch Chatham Square. We like to do something that's called the modal share. So we look at each mode during the peak hour just to see comparison of like volume of users. So pedestrians are the largest mode of travel in the square. They represent 80% of users in the PM peak hour. That rises to 85% in the midday. Vehicular volumes are relatively consistent across all peak periods. We believe this to be because of the proximity to the bridge, where we have major crossings, we see more consistent vehicular volumes. At a very standard intersection, kind of, in the middle of like a standard neighborhood, you have very clear AM, PM peaks, low midday, low weekend. Because of the proximity to the bridge, we actually see very consistent vehicular volumes throughout the day. And one thing that was somewhat shocking is that the weekend volumes match the weeknight volumes. Typically, weekend volumes are lower. Here, they're actually basically just as high, which is worth noting. Next slide. We then look at that in comparison to like what the square or a roadway is actually made up of. So we looked at the Chatham Square area, and it's about 1/3 sidewalk space and 2/3 roadway space. And interesting note, the majority of the road space is actually shared. There's actually not much dedicated space for any one roadway user. So cars, trucks, buses, and cyclists are, for the most part, sharing all the space within the roadway of Chatham Square. Most of the curbside space is loading for trucks, commercial loading, or bus stops. That's where you see the 4% and 2% the pie for the roadway. And there's very minimal dedicated bicycle space, just 1%. Next slide.
Sorry. How many slides are there?
I think there are like 10 more.
Okay. I'm just like looking at the cursor on the side. I'm like, we are not even halfway through.
Yeah,
Okay.
this is a very data heavy presentation.
Okay.
And I can go through these faster if we want. So we also looked at vehicular origin destinations just to understand the travel patterns within the square and how any changes within the square would change those. Division Street is the highest origin, so a lot of traffic coming from Division Street, we assume going to the Manhattan Bridge. Worth and St. James are the next highest origins. Bowery northbound, and then Worth Street are the highest destinations. So we go to the next slide. We looked at the top 5 flows throughout the square. These top 5 movements represent 45% of the total vehicular volumes out of the 18% of possible movements. So a very large amount of people are doing these 5 movements, representing almost half of the traffic in the square. The largest movements are from St. James to Worth and from Division to northbound Bowery, again, going to the Manhattan Bridge. And this pattern is mostly consistent across all peak periods with very minor differences. Next slide. We also wanted to understand what people who are using Kinloch Square, where are they going and coming from? So it's both AM and PM peak hours. Over half of the people passing through Kinloch Square in a vehicle have destinations in Chinatown, which are these census blocks that we pulled out to represent Chinatown. This data is at a census block level. And about 20% of trips passing through Kinloch Square have origins in Chinatown. And this is fairly consistent across peak hours. The PM is slightly different, but relatively similar. This is a subset of trips, so we use this from a private contractor called Streetlight, where they use anonymized GPS data from roadway users. So it's not representational of every single trip going through the square, but it's just kind of a helpful reference point for kind of a general gut check of like where people are going. Next slide, please. We also wanted to understand vehicular queuing and vehicular congestion. So we looked at every intersection in the study area. A third of the intersections in the study area have queuing or delay above the average for all the intersections studied. And not unsurprising, the Worth Park Road St. James intersection is the worst, with over 3 times the average of all the locations in the study area. Next slide. Looking at pedestrians. We looked at pedestrian counts throughout the area of the square. Pedestrian volumes are higher on the southwest side of the square, close to the Park Row entrance and Worth Street. The most used crosswalk in the square is actually across Park Row, which is a nearly conflict-free crossing, which means less than 10 cars are turning across that crosswalk in an hour. And 61% of pedestrians in the square are currently crossing in conflict-free crossings. Of course, this assumes compliance with traffic signals, so baseline. Next slide, please. We also looked at origin and destination for cyclists. East Broadway and Park Row are the largest origins for cyclists. They actually have bike infrastructure, so that's somewhat is to be expected. And Worth Street and East Broadway are the largest destinations. Worth Street is a very key east-west connector. It's actually one of the only ways to get to the west side, so that's why we see a lot of cyclists going. The next step of this process is to begin making assumptions on Park Row volumes if Park Row is to reopen. DOT and our consultant team are evaluating multiple sources of data to determine estimated volume changes. We're using the 2006 One Police Plaza Security Plan EIS pre-closure volume data. It's essentially 2 pages out of the EIS where they had pre-closure volume data. We're using that as a reference point. We're also comparing it to the current origin and destination data that I showed previously. And we're also using a traffic model that DOT has and maintains called the Lower Manhattan Network Model. It's essentially a flow model of all of the streets in Lower Manhattan, south of Delancey Street, where you can essentially turn on and off street segments, and it reroutes traffic through the entire network. So we're using that to estimate if Park Row is to reopen, where that traffic would come from, and where it's going, and how many people would use a reopened Park Row. How do we model all this and how do we analyze it? We start with the existing conditions, which are have just presented. We then run through each scenario in the future condition. We're using 2028 as our year for the action, which is the change we are making. We're analyzing all 3 scenarios, Park Row reopening, Camelot Square, and both actions combined. And we compare that to a model of the future that doesn't have a change. And what we do is we then make any recommended changes to make any of the proposed scenarios work, which could include making lane assignment changes, changing the number of lanes that approach, making geometric changes, or signal timing changes to make the action, either Park Row reopening, the Camelot Square reorganization, or both actions, more feasible from an operational standpoint. So that's what will be presented later in the year. And just final slide, wrapping up just with the timeline. So Park Row reopening is in progress. We'll then move into the traffic modeling in November, and then the interim results in December, and the final report end of year, January, February 2025. I think that is it.
Great, thank you. I have a couple of things to say, but I want to say just a quick one first about the bus stop. If you go back to that slide, so it's easier if you see it.
Is it the Bus Island?
Bus Island, yes. So the issue was, I was there not very long ago. It's a fairly narrow space. Being on a mobility scooter, and especially if I was in a wheelchair, how in the world can those people get around to get into the bus shelter? Is there enough width there? And if not, how could they possibly be sheltered from the weather or shaded? Are they just completely excluded from, I know they don't need a seat, they're taking it with them. But nevertheless, they have no access to get into the protection. So that needs to be considered because they can't be excluded. And I'm not so sure if there's any guidance for the people with low vision. I can't speak for that group, but that's another concern too. How do they know? you know, what it is and where to go to it.
For your first question, if you actually go to the next slide, which has a photo of a bus shelter, we do provide a fully accessible ADA clear path into the shelter, and you can see that in front of the side panel of the bus shelter. And then there's actually companion seating next to the bench to allow someone who's using a mobility device to sit next to the bench and be fully within the shelter.
Is
We,
that island the same?
it's very close. I don't know if
It
it,
looks bigger, that's, I
have
think
to-
if you go
I have
back,
to measure it.
if you go back one, take a look how wide that is. And take a look at the strip that's up there.
The other was barely wide enough for.
Yes, yes, correct.
So this does meet our minimum requirements for accessible bus stop islands. I believe it's 9 feet wide. I would have to check that. I don't have that number directly at hand. And we are looking to use our narrow bus shelter, which is citable on these types of islands. But we can take that back and make sure that we are meeting all the proper
What would it take to make it wider?
rebuilding it. The biggest constraint is always clearance from the bus island to the curb. We want to ensure that we can get a snowplow and a street sweeper through, essentially what's on the bike lane. And then on the opposite side, we are leaving a standard travel lane width on the roadway side of the bus island. So it is essentially as large as it could be without drastically changing the rest of the intersection on the north side of the island for Park Row. But I will take back and get the dimensions to be able to provide and.
Because pursuant to what Betty's saying, though, would the bus shelter be on the sidewalk potentially, instead of on the island?
Could
I-
be.
No.
So the island would be there, then you have the bikes moving, and so you have them in the bus shelter, you have to hurry up and get past the bikes. And then get around that to get to the bus would be difficult.
Well, yeah, but I think that's my question, if the option is, it doesn't fit because it's just to the just, right, and it doesn't provide full accessibility on the island, is the sidewalk where the bus stop used to be a location, that, yes, I understand people would have to hustle over, but, I mean,
Well, the bus would be aligned for that. Couldn't be aligned with the bus stop, with the shelter, because that's what they can't get past.
Yeah, I think that's something we can take back. I think the goal is to always have the bus stop infrastructure on the island, so someone, when they're waiting for the bus, can just cross and wait instead of having to like wait for the bus, see the bus run across. So I think that's something we can look at. And if for some reason a shelter is not feasible on the island, we can also look at if it could be placed on the sidewalk. I don't know if we've done that before, but it's something we can look at.
Are the shelters like flexible in their construction that you'd be able to better accommodate?
We have a couple sizes, so we're using the narrowest one, because it can fit on bus islands. I believe it's the one that's shown in the next slide. That's our narrow bus shelter profile. There are bigger ones, but they just take up more space, so it's always which one. do you use.
and what is the timeline for a response from J.C. DeKalb? You said that they're looking at it, but what time limit do they have for it? The determination, how will we know about that? And then from the point that they say, yes, we can install a narrow one, how long does it take? Are we talking a year, 6 months, 2 weeks?
Probably not 2 weeks. The goal is to.
Can't blame a girl for asking.
The goal is to get a determination in the next couple months. We're working it into their rotation of where they do surveys, because they're doing this at a citywide level. They operate all of our shelters in the entire city. Installation would then get onto their list. Bus shelters are not my area of expertise, so I'd have to go back and see when if it was approved, January 1st, what is the expectation for installation? That I'm not.
Yeah, we'd really like to understand that because that makes a major impact. And if the installation is not going to be for a very long time, which, no offense intended, sort of sounds that way, what are the opportunities for city benches, leaning bars, and other things that are more in the DOT toolkit of street furniture that you own and manage while you're waiting for the other one?
So we have those in stock. We have leaning bars in stock. There's a city bench at the existing location that we could relocate. So those could be much quicker. we're just waiting for the determination on the shelter to make sure we don't like put things in the wrong spots, so, but
Do
those would
not
be-
relocate the bench from the other side,
we could also get, it won't come from the other side.
because there's the bus stop on the,
No, it would come from, I believe it's on the south, on the east sidewalk, where the old bus stop was, but I could be mistaken. There's one there.
yeah. One on each side.
Yep.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, yeah, maybe since you're
Yeah.
waiting.
But the concrete barriers, if you could slide up further into the past. There's the concrete barriers out of the art.
Yes, like 7.
It's like-
Up into the past.
Yeah, there they are. So in Brooklyn, I think over by the Navy Yard, there's also concrete barriers and they end up growing weird things, you know, like the leaves will bunch up underneath it and then stuff will sprout out and it's like weird. Is there a way to prevent that from happening here?
I'm not too familiar with where you're talking about in Brooklyn. But I understand what would happen is that the stuff would get under the barriers, clog it up and then kind of sit there. It's something we can talk about maintenance wise. I can take back about to the people who manage these Jersey barriers. The biggest reason there's a gap is for drainage, so we don't have water ponding. It allows the water to go under, but I think definitely having debris collect there is definitely an issue, so I can see what we've done at other
But
locations.
it says something about like that they're wide enough for street sweepers. Do street sweepers clean the bike path?
They do clean the bike path,
Okay.
but they typically clean the curb. Granted, within the secure zone, I don't know how DSNY operates. That's a great question. Unknown to me. But we can look at what we've done elsewhere where we have barriers to prevent things from accumulating underneath them.
Okay, awesome, thanks.
Well, so who else, Carly, did you have something you wanted to show at the same time?
Yeah, actually, can we spoil up some? So for
Make
other
sure Zach's
people
ready
who
for that.
are not me and don't literally walk here every single day, just wanted to share some fun stuff. As soon as Zach's able to get it up.
Fun in a
Thank
good
you,
way
sir.
or fun in an interesting?
Another.
Well, yeah, no, a lot of this is in response to this progress of the SIP.
Because I do actually literally walk it every day and sometimes multiple times a day. And I'm really excited actually by the SIP work. When, you know, you first told us about what the SIP would be, I was very confused and concerned. And since then,
And she's speaking from the perspective of Gotham Park.
yes. So this is people walking under what was a incredibly desolate, unwelcoming. By the way, I don't know if you're to go by name sequence order, but it's actually surprising, and I really wish you had done the pedestrian counts before you did the work, because the amount of people that are going through these spaces are increasing so much, and I am personally shocked. We can't call it Zach, can we just cycle through them and see what they are? We can't really call it the mugging stare anymore because it doesn't look like the place where you are going to get mugged. I do wish though that you would be able to paint the entire opening, which I told you guys privately, but now I'm gonna tell you, everybody. I wish that you were able to paint the entire stairwell with the reflective sort of like, you know, shiny paint, because the rest of it is matte and doesn't sort of reflect the light as well. And then, let's just keep up. So this is what it used to look like. So now you know why I called it the mugging stare. I know Tammy calls it the murder stare. It did actually stink horribly like a bathroom because it was so dark that people actually felt comfortable utilizing it as a bathroom, like daily.
That's disgusting.
It was so gross. And now I can actually say that, I can't say that it's like never pungent, but it's not like anything like it was ever before. Can you play this? Cause this is like, this shocked the crap out of me. I mean, oh, no pun.
It needs more.
But look,
Because people won't pay there. It's too illuminating.
and they just don't stop. I mean, it's like shocking to me. that this is the same stair. And that was literally just with like a layer of paint on half of it. So I am so excited versus that, yes. As far as I know, nobody has graffitied it since you guys have done this work, which is super exciting. I do also request that you put sign, like maybe change the signage, because that's like looking a little tired and wasn't replaced. This is what that used to look like, and if you remember that first photo that was there, it was the same exact spot. It just looked so much lighter and brighter, so I feel like, and you know, this is what it used to be like, and so I can't wait until we look at the part that actually has a sidewalk in there, which you're saying is gonna be by the end of December?
Yeah, hopefully,
Okay.
that's the plan.
So, I mean, I think that's amazing. We do have a lot more foot traffic there, just anecdotally, since, you know, I don't go with a clicker or anything, but I definitely see a lot more people here. Both accessing the stair to get on the bridge as well as egressing from the stair, and walking into Chinatown. So personally, I think it's been enormously successful, and I'm shocked at what you're able to accomplish just with paint. Obviously, I think that, you know, more work can be done, you know, maybe enlarging the opening for the stair, some really awesome wayfinding, which I know you guys are working on right now, maybe? Yeah?
I'm not sure, I'd have to ask that team.
I think wayfinding would be incredibly helpful because people do stop us still all the time or look incredibly confused about where to go because there isn't signage there. I mean, there's like one sign at the bottom and nobody can see it. So I just wanted to say thank you. Just as somebody who is there constantly, the change is extremely noticeable and it's super exciting. And I feel like this is starting to feel like a space that is occupied and utilized, and hopefully we'll be delivering lots of foot traffic to the neighborhood. So.
Yeah, and I want to tag on two things to that, because I was just over there not too long ago with Nancy, and we were talking, she was showing me changes due to the SIP, and people kept coming over to us to ask us questions as they came up and down the staircase. Because one, they were confused, which is why they were asking. It was just one person after another, and we couldn't even speak to each other because there were just more and more people. Where the stairs were, if they were going in that direction, where, how to get to Chinatown if they were going in that direction. And they were just like, where do we go now?
Yeah.
Was there definitely wayfinding?
Yeah.
The other was right next to that, in the last slide. It's too bad you just changed it. You don't have one slide.
That was a direction.
Just a slide ago, you just changed it. Anyway,
slide.
see, yeah, I know.
Is it this one?
Anyway, this one. You look over in the corner on the left side, you can see a little bit of a fence. In fact, before there was a lot of stuff behind that fence. I didn't realize I could see Gotham Park right through it. And I think now that it's so obviously clear, and some of the land that between them is going to be given to Gotham Park. This is going to be a whole route of pedestrians going in and out of Gotham Park from Park Row, which I didn't have quite the grip on because I wasn't so visually clear how close it was.
Yeah, it's right there.
It's right
So that
on the other side of the fence.
really needs to be considered, because you're gonna have pedestrians coming from the west and coming north and south to Gotham Park directly from Park Row and not bothering to go around to Rose Street. And I don't know if one is really factoring that in. Yeah.
Betty, can I ask a question?
Well, maybe he's gonna speak and if he has to go after that.
I'm just gonna ask about bathrooms, because the urinal staircase, is so beautiful now. I just don't know where people are gonna go. And I know that DOT has bathrooms.
Yeah, so we're currently evaluating for the automated paid toilets, the APTs, so we acknowledge that restrooms are definitely needed. We know Rose is very interested in bathroom facilities, so we are continuing these conversations and.
I'm just gonna point out that when you say.
There's somebody else online. Somebody go after Mimi. Let's let everybody go.
I
I'm
support
waiting to
Rosa,
the end of
I
the
support Rosa on that, but let's let Wendy speak.
Is that Wendy? Was that
It's Justine, actually.
And then you've got members of the public and I have a whole list.
I,
Justine,
is it me? Okay, thank you. I just have two questions. Number one, is this open in the evening? I think it is now, or was before. So it's open as a path, as a walking path, whatever, at night?
Yes, it's open 24/7.
Okay, question one. Question two, how well lit is it and how well used is it at night? Because it's a little, I mean, I'm so happy to see the number of people walking through, but I still, well, I don't know. I've got to go there now. It was never a place I would go through before at all. So we'll see. But I just wonder about the lights, and I agree with Mimi about the bathrooms. Thank you.
Yeah, for lighting, I think that's something that comes up. This is not the only area under an elevated space where lighting comes up. I think we've looked at additional lighting. I think we'd have to check on where the status is for that. It's something that is continuously brought up and we are like continuously evaluating for how to improve lighting and make sure that it's meeting all of our standards. But it's definitely an issue that we see under any elevated structure.
Yeah, you would need a lot of it to go through there at night, all the way along the path. And especially if you open up the area to Gotham Park, that all needs to be lit as well. And if I may, trying to use as much solar lighting as possible would be wonderful. You could put more out there and then, of course, have some electrical lighting, but it could be enhanced by solar and be brighter when the weather is sunny. Thank you.
Yeah, and I just want to, Gigi reminded me that we did increase the light levels with the one light under the bridge. I'm not sure how, not my area of expertise, but our lighting team bumped up the wattage, I think.
I would
But
imagine
the
that's
point
what
about-
would be what encourages people to walk through, but thank you.
do you want Sam to go before you do?
Yes, please.
Yes, Sam, participants, if you'd like to speak, unmute and speak.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, great. Hi. I just wanted to log on to hear the presentation and then also speak very briefly to say some of the same things I've already heard. So I'm a resident of East Broadway near Park Row. I walk down it all the time, bike down occasionally, and I agree with what was being said that since the SIP was started to be implemented, it's really just such a pleasant improvement, such a nicer place to walk. You see so many more people on it. You see Park Row being that pedestrian connection to Chinatown that I think is really so important to revitalizing it. So as a neighborhood resident, I'm just so encouraged by what I'm seeing. I want more of it. The plans sound great. It's just such a wonderful pedestrian area now, and I think that's great. So that's what I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Amy, if you'd like to go. Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm from the public. Am I allowed to speak now, or is this just for the?
I'll leave that to Tammy. Would you like to do?
I'll wait because you also have hands online from members of the public and it's really about having as many people participate. I have a list of questions I can come back to. Go ahead. I saw Triple had his hand up, Nancy, Howard, yeah.
Yes, please.
Oh, no, okay. Three things. First, I live on Park Row and I see the traffic on St. James and on Ward Street. It's thick. Single lane of traffic each way. Emergency vehicles have no way to get through. Park Row was a major thoroughfare, and that was the direct route to the fire department as well as to the hospital. And with it shut, that is increasing emergency response times, which all over the city have been increasing. So that's a very big concern for us. So the bus island has taken up a lane that could be used. I feel there needs to be 2 lanes of traffic. The current configuration, if you don't live on Park Road, you're not aware that when the bus goes through and pedestrian cars go through, that's 1 lane of traffic. The police and the feds have another lane with bomb sniffing dogs. They hold trucks there. The people in my building who have to move in or out or have renovation supplies moving in and out, the handicap have a ramp And if you only have one single lane, they're not able to come in and out on our side of the road. We've lost access to our address, 180 Park Road. When we have to reserve a car, they're so confused as to where to go, because then they go around the corner to Wall Street. The other thing is this is a very data-heavy information that we're receiving. And in the past, I was on the Community Board 3 Chatham Square Task Force. We had our own traffic engineer who helped us analyze the DOT's data of the traffic study that you're talking about from 2006. And we're at a serious disadvantage because this information is going to be given to us in November and December. How is that enough time for us to, who is going to help us evaluate that information? How much time do we have? That's a big concern. Also, if the street is presently closed, why do we need 15 more police parking spots when the whole area is filled with little mini parking spots? So to me, it's irritating to look out my window and now see more police vehicles parking on Park Road instead of using it for the community. Also, there are 3 major projects that are occurring within blocks of Chatham Square where this reconfiguration is being proposed. The mega jail, which is 2.5 blocks away, 70 Mulberry, a big development that's coming into Chinatown. That's the second one. The third one, the Mullen building, which is right on Park Road, a $50 million reconstruction is being proposed. That is going to bring lots of demolition traffic in and out of that area. So we're talking about reconfiguring Chatham Square at the same time that all these 3 projects are happening. And this is a great concern to me. Let's see, traffic. So the bike path, it is narrow and it is at an angle. So you are, and for people to pass 2 bike lanes, and you've given examples of other traffic islands in the city, but they're not in Manhattan, in downtown Manhattan. They're in obscure places. This is going to be a major entryway to the Brooklyn Bridge for bicyclists. And I do see increased traffic. I'm very worried about the people who are running for the bus, have to cross 2 traffic islands, go on a narrow entryway, get on it and stay safe. Whereas before, we were just sitting on the curb. Another alternative, which was not offered to the community, is to have made that bike lane in the middle. Therefore, there would be no need for an island taking up an entire traffic lane that we need for emergency vehicles. So if it had gone down the middle and then after the checkpoint, which is what happens now, that's where the bike lanes start. That would be safer for pedestrians and would have worked for bicyclists. So I'm very troubled by some of the things that were presented today. Thank you.
Well, can I say something?
But you know, sorry, there are a bunch of people waiting, so we'll get to you, but let some of the other people waiting go first. Thanks. Anna, if you're online next, and then Howard, Nancy, and Triple, in case you're curious. Anna, if you'd like to unmute. It's like Anna's left.
I don't see an Anna anymore.
Okay, Howard.
Oh,
if
no,
you-
she's there. She'll just put her hand down.
Okay, Howard, if you'd like to go. Howard,
Howard, can you wait? To request to unmute him? Go to Nancy or to Triple then. You can go.
yeah, Nancy, if you'd like to go, we'll get someone who
We
thinks.
got Anna. Anna, go ahead. Go ahead and speak.
Oh, okay. Well, you gave us some examples of bus islands in Washington Heights and Inwood and the Bronx, but they're not comparable to downtown Manhattan traffic flow. Could you give us some examples that are comparable in order to justify the implementation of this Park Row bus island? And isn't it more common to have sidewalk bus stops? I'm used to curbside sharing cabs and bus stops and deliveries and so on. I just don't see the necessity for this bus island.
Yeah, we do have other Manhattan examples. We didn't include them because they didn't have the exact same configuration as the one at Park Row. 21st Street between Avenue A and B has a bus stop island with a two-way bike path. Very, similar land use. It's not too far away from this location. We didn't provide it as this location because the bus did not stop in the moving lane. That was something that was brought up in past conversations, that we should be doing direct comparisons where a bus stops in a moving lane. That bus stop island and bus stop, the bus pulls out of the general traffic lane. But it is a Manhattan example that is relatively nearby. We also have bus islands in the middle of the roadway on 3rd Avenue in Midtown near the Queensboro Bridge or the Queens Midtown Tunnel, where bus passengers aren't necessarily crossing a bike lane, but they are crossing a lane of traffic. So that's another location where we have very heavy roadway traffic and very high pedestrian volume. So there is no perfect example that exactly matches the conditions at Park Row, but we do have comparable locations. And concerns about people crossing either a moving lane or bike lanes was brought up for the installation of every single one of those locations, and we haven't seen any injuries or severe injuries at those locations post-construction, but we will be continuing to monitor these locations in the future.
Thank you. Howard?
Hi, thank you. Yeah, I want to mention also about the 15 parking spots for the police. I think it's superfluous because Park Row is closed and the cyclists don't need the protection. And also those cars lead to a lot of abuse by the police cars because they park in the cyclist lanes and block those lanes a lot oftentimes. And also whenever there's crowd control, they just block the whole street. So, I say, let's remove the 15 police parking spots. It's not needed.
Yeah, I'll just say, I think that's like a great comment. I think we at DOT saw an issue where there were police cars backing up onto the sidewalk, blocking the bike lane. We took this opportunity as part of a street redesign to create a dedicated space for those vehicles, which we saw already there, and have them be there in a safe way. But I can't comment on parking by NYPD.
Are we seeing a reduction in
Wait a
the
second.
sidewalk and stuff?
If we could get Nancy speak, so I think there's a lot of people.
Yep. Thank you very much. I'm Nancy Kong, and I have lived on Park Row for over 20 years. I also use Park Row every day. I work on Park Row. So for those of you who may think Park Row is not being used, it's actually not true. People use it every day. After 9/11 and the closure of Park Row, I also was very outraged. I couldn't believe that Park Row was taken away from the community. But our community is incredibly resilient. Older adults use it every day to go into Chinatown to do their shopping. You see them with their shopping carts. Parents use Park Row to bring their children to school. And I've had so many parents come to me and say, Nancy, when we have to pass the staircase, our kids and we have to see people urinating. And so now I just want to assure the community board members that your support for these improvements is absolutely working. Now we don't see people urinating in the staircase. You can still smell some of it occasionally. And now we're seeing double, triple the number of people walking into Chinatown to eat, shop, and dine. That is economic, sustainable revitalization for Chinatown. And I also see people going into the South Street Seaport. This is actually working. And I just have to thank the visionaries that propose this. And I also have to thank the community board for their initial support. But I also have to say that these are temporary improvements. They absolutely are showing that they need to be permanent. We need to have continued and more, including federal investments, to make these permanent and to make it safe for these pedestrians, as well as having a protected bike lane. You are hearing people that want to open it up to cars and have potentially 4 lanes. And you saw in the results that Casey was showing for pedestrians, even though they're the largest number of the modes, they have a third of the space. And so something needs to be done to address that. And decisions actually need to be data driven and not just based on a whim from political elected or anything like that. It really needs to be based on data. The one last thing that I just wanted to say, the bus island, like the shading as well as the safety concerns for the older population absolutely needs to be addressed. And also related to the 180 and the ramp, NYPD has always provided for delivery and moving trucks to park temporarily on Park Row so that loading and unloading can be done. They've also said that we can have Uber, private cars, or whatever vehicles drop people off. So part of it is working with NYPD. And sorry, one last thing. We all agree we do not want Park Row to be NYPD parking. One way to get rid of the parking is actually to build out a pedestrian walkway, more greenery, put trees where they should be parking. And that's how we can actually beautify and repair and invest in Park Row for the community. Thank you all very much for your time.
Thank you, Nancy. Well, let's have Triple and then Brendan, if you'd like to go after that.
Am I on?
Go ahead, Triple.
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. I agree. I mean, Casey, I know that the DOT works with the NYPD, and the NYPD is really overreaching. So not only do you have the 15-car bike lane on the new 15 spots, but on the opposite side, on the north side, there's also a protected bike lane, but there's no bike lane there. But they park just as many cars going up there and throughout. So I'd like to address that. If I think we're all in agreement, if the NYPD were not there, there seems to be enough room to accommodate all these wonderful improvements. We can have the pedestrian walkway, we can have a two-way bike lane, and we can return it back to its original state as it was intended to be a 2 lanes on both ways. But I'm a stakeholder member on the Chinatown Connections Working Group. And here's a question for Gigi. I just noticed there are no minutes and there's no records on anything we discuss. And there doesn't seem to be any minutes planned for the future meetings either. And I want to know why that is.
Thanks, Triple. I'm here. Yeah, we can definitely talk about that. I think that's the first time it's raised, and we have agency folks that definitely are taking minutes and responding to concerns that are raised, but happy to take that back to have as part of our discussion on more transparency with the group.
Well, I have brought it up before, but you don't have a reason why, like as the head of this, why do you think?
Now's time for that discussion.
Yeah,
I think that's.
I mean, Triple, do you have other questions? Because Gigi's clearly not going to answer that one here. One of the reasons that they are here is so it is recorded, they are on record. And if you have questions from there that you think need to be aired a little bit or get answers in the public realm, that's the best way to ask the question. So it is on public record. But I mean, there's no point in arguing about the other meeting because we're not there, we're here. Okay?
Yes.
Right.
And I know you have other questions, so fire away.
Yeah, my other question then is, can't we accommodate all of these wonderful improvements if we were to do something about the overreach of privileged police parking?
I don't think we're there yet with the comment made by DOT. Casey, is that correct?
Well, I think So the traffic study will look at what is required if Park Row is reopening. If it needs 2 lanes in each direction, that will be identified in the traffic study. The next step is then how do you accomplish that? And I think that's like an entirely separate conversation because it requires more than just DOT saying we're gonna strike 2 lanes. So I think we're working to complete the traffic study to then have those conversations over whether it should reopen, how it reopens, how it's all accomplished, and the timeline for that. I think we're, as DOT, are a little bit of between a rock and a hard place of trying to do this traffic study, but we don't know what the final condition will be, so it's hard for us to predict where this goes.
But the space is there, correct?
In theory, I would say yes. I think there's one part of Park Row under the bridge where there's columns in the middle of the roadway. It's the narrowest part, you know, that's a pinch point along the corridor. But in general, it is a very large right of way.
And many roads have that pinch point, but from the, so,
For a commitment that isn't going to happen.
right, with the DOT.
Otherwise, we'll move on.
No, I have a question. The DOT site states that most bike lanes that are 2-way are 8 feet wide, but yet you're using the 10 feet wide, which is the requirement for the bus island area. So again, that's more space that's being eaten up. And you're also, I don't understand, right by the police checkpoint at Park Row, it narrows to 7 feet. And at that space, there's a concrete block in the middle of the bike lane, as there are concrete blocks in the middle of Pearl Street and Park Row. I don't know how that protects the safety of the bike riders. Could you please explain?
So we try to work all of our designs through existing conditions, and the security infrastructure is definitely a very unique and challenging existing condition to design around. The standard for 8 feet is the minimum width of a marked bike lane from edge to edge. That is the minimum. We do go above that minimum where we see there might be an extra need for additional space. The distance between the curb and the bus island is 11 feet to allow for a plow to plow snow from the bike. Minimum width from a hard edge to a hard edge is 11 feet citywide.
Okay, next question. He's answered it, so let's keep going. Triple.
Got it. That's it.
Thank you very much. Then Brendan, if you'd like to.
No, it's okay.
Well, you were before you, before her.
I'm okay. I don't need to ask.
I
Thank
can
you.
speak.
Yes.
Okay. I live in Chinatown for many years, and I myself, I ride bike. I have nothing against any bikers. Okay. The point is, unfortunately, I was hit by bicycle. You know, thank God I was not seriously injured. But I have a client's daughter who fell down and just go to see a dentist. Okay, and also we have this particular in Chinatown, a Chinese principal who got killed in Chinatown because of a bike accident. So to me, the bicycle, even though I am not against the bicycle, there should be rules and regulations, just like the cars, they hit us, we cannot even do nothing. They ran away, okay? I think everybody know about that. Of course, there are many good bikers, okay, like me. And the thing is, that's why I think in order to, I know you guys like to encourage more biking in the city, but there should be rules and regulations. And the thing is, I'm very concerned about the bus island. Why? Because I take bus from that stop too, bus 103, 9 bus, okay? And normally I'm on the curb of the pedestrian, right? So I get on the bus. But now with this bus island, I have to cross 2-lane bike. I feel threatened. Imagine people, you know, the senior, the disabled, the visually impaired, okay, even though they have people to help them out, but some are on their own. So this, and also there's a senior center right next to Park Row on that bus stop. So the people has to make an effort to cross the bike lane, 2-way bike lane. Okay, they have to look here, look there, you know. So
I think it's very dangerous, and we appreciate the DOT's efforts to improve Park Road, but I deeply am concerned, and I hope you guys would consider it. There's no need for a bus island. I don't think so. If you look at Trader Joe on Access Street Market, there's a bus stop, and there's a lot of bike lanes. They did not build a bus island there. It works, okay? So I really appreciate you guys to give some thought to that. It involves the safety of the senior of Chinatown. There's more senior people in Chinatown now. And I appreciate you guys would look into it and care about Chinatown people. A lot of the seniors, they cannot cope with that. Not only them, one time I know this owner of Ferrara Bakery in Little Italy. If you go to buy the bakery, you will see that at the outdoor dining place, he put up 3 posters to warn the people, look here, look left, look right for the bicycle, because his brother-in-law's wife, the Italian woman, was also hit by the bike. So I hope you guys will look at this seriously, and we really will appreciate you guys do away with that bike Friday. It's not necessary, and a waste of taxpayers' money. I'm sorry who designed it, who think of it, but they did not look at the other side of the story, okay? And I appreciate that meeting like this, see, like people have to come after work, and come so late for this. It'd be so much nicer and appreciative if you guys could have meeting like this from the DOT or whoever in charge of this, to have a meeting inside the community, like at the Chinese Center on Mud Street, so more people are available to come to hear about your plan, like the slide. I'm sure they would love to see the slide presentation. Like the last time you guys did it at Madison Square Garden, no, not Madison Square, the Hamilton Madison House.
Hamilton Madison, yeah.
Those figures are so little tiny for such a huge project. It should be like this. You guys could bring this meeting down there to get the feedback of the people, that eventually it will be a win-win situation. We're not against you, don't get me wrong, but we hope that you will be more concerned about the real people, and some don't even speak English. They live around there. So I hope I speak my mind.
I think those of you in CD3, actually, they are coming to your community.
They
That's
already
your
were there.
location.
They were there last week.
No, but also, we're going next week.
Next
But I also want to say that for those, if you come down into our district in CB1, when you're leaving and going across the Hudson River Greenway, where I live, for instance, I go past it too by bikeway all the time, and then I stand on the curb to get across West Street. And you just have to stand there in a big crowd as the bikes go back and forth behind you. It's not unique at all, and you can go experience it there. And the people love it there, but there aren't a lot of accidents.
Deborah Glick got hit on both sides, I'm sure.
I think in general, though, we do acknowledge that the bus island was the most contentious part of this project, and we're continuing to evaluate, and it's not, it's not a permanent thing that can never be changed. So we do acknowledge that it is a concern, and we are continuing to make sure we're watching it and making any changes as needed. So, but we do appreciate what you said.
Thank you. Okay, I have my list of questions. When would the public be able to expect the calming measures to slowing the bikes down on the bike lane?
I wasn't able to get a confirmed timeline on it. We, as the city and as DOT, are kind of in our mad dash end of season project wrap up. We are going to our engineering team to update drawings that have to be signed and sealed by an engineer for any changes in the roadway. We're then looking to issue any changes to our in-house crews to do quickly, but I don't have a firm timeline yet. But if we're able to get the drawings updated, we would hopefully be able to install them before the end of the year. But
that's great news.
It's not confirmed.
That's okay. That would be awesome news if that could happen. And then one of the questions that I have, that seems to be the conversation we have at every intersection where we have bike lanes, is the fact that there's no such thing as enforcement, traffic enforcement. So if you have a traffic light there and the bicyclists are supposed to stop, good luck. Right? And I jokingly said the other day that we need railroad crossings at like major intersections. And people laughed at me when I said that, but I do think that we have a problem that NYPD cannot enforce it because they're going too fast, they're gonna get hit. There's no like way for them to enforce. A car stops at a traffic light. If it doesn't stop at the traffic light, it gets a ticket because there's numerous ways. I challenge DOT to work with NYPD and the public concern and the public safety and find a way to figure this out. I don't care what you need in your toolkit, but you can't have a cop standing at every corner. We still need safety. It comes up here because this area, as you mentioned on your, your crossing lanes, right? When you look at the crossing of the pedestrians, are they crossing on that side? Because traditionally there was no cars, but the bus stops are right there, right? The bus stops are not indicated on where you show that people cross. That's gotta be a major draw for why people are crossing at one side or the other side, is because that's where the bus stops are, right? I mean, that's just natural, right? And so that I think needed to be included in there. And if you could, when you come back, and do that, kind of show us where the bus stops are in relation to the crossing counts. Because that will actually understand. If the M9 stops, a half a block up or over here, and this one has less traffic, I'm gonna walk my half a block around, and especially at that intersection, the bus stops aren't that far. So I think that that's super important to show. And then there's a lot of pain that's shown on St. James and Worth in a variety of different ways. And the question that we ask, and the community has been asking since after 9/11, is if Park Row was reopened, what does that do to the pain on St. James? You have the note in there that the bicycles are now rerouted onto St. James Place. I get that, because they will return, with some pedestrians will return over to the East River when that's done. And it's not gonna be for another 4 or 5 years. So the question really is, when you come back to us, I'd like to see the data and the forecast for what improvements the Park Road reopening would have on St. James Place.
Yeah, so we do have St. James included in our traffic study. And any changes as part of a Park Row reopening would quantify changes to St. James with any volume changes and operational changes.
The largest elephant that I have not seen that talks about effect is the MDC and the BBJ. Okay, those buildings, when they reopen, and at this rate, there's no way that they won't be built. I believe a new contractor, the RFP, somebody has been announced for the jail. You're talking thousands more people and more transit that will be coming through there to that. And I don't see any mention of that in any of your studies, any correlation with that. It's right there. That's a big portion of traffic that Worth Street handles.
Right.
Across.
So our future no changes model incorporates development ongoing in the city regardless of that. We have the Borough-based jail as a part of our study. There's mention of 2 other developments. One was
Mulberry and
Sylvia Mullen.
Yeah, so I mean, it really needs to be super clear what you're anticipating, because those two developments are big, but they're nothing like the BBJ is. With the traffic flow, with the day versus evening, weekends, all of that is incredibly hard for Chinatown. And so I want to see that when you come back. It's really important.
No, I can confirm the Borough-based jail is in there. That one we knew immediately absolutely had to be included. We're supposed to meet with DCP to look at any other outside development that would have an impact, but having these others is helpful.
I think that really does make me quite concerned, and I will point this out because when you look at evening and weekends seem to be mostly the same for vehicular traffic and things like that, where the days are different. I think once you add the courts and the borough-based jail and all of that in, that will change some of the different things. So that's one of the things. And also, we know, and we've heard from the community, that emergency vehicles tend to not use Park Road because of the time it takes to get the gates up and down. If they see less traffic, it's just easier for them to hit the sirens and be running around it, which is not ideal. When you add the borough-based jail back in, how much more emergency services are gonna be needed getting back and forth to the hospital in relation to that building? Or is that building gonna have its own emergency services? That would be something I'd wanna understand how that goes. Let's see, yeah. What other traffic calming measures for bicycles at intersections? Not in terms of something more than a little red light. What can be done? And I'd like you to come back to us with some information on that, because it's not working well, as Betty talks about on crossing 9A. It really doesn't work great there. People don't know where they're going. They don't know where they're standing. The bicycles come through. There's no delineated bicycle stop here like there are for cars, right? We talk about sometimes pulling the car stop back 5 feet to allow for more pedestrians, but there's no really bicycle stop area. So how can you manage that in an area where you've got the bus stop? That's a curious question that I'd like to know. And then I know CB3 had done an independent traffic study in 2019, and I don't see that included in your list of studies. And I'd want to know why and how it can be incorporated.
No, that was something that was brought up at the working group meeting by Triple, and I'm still working to get that from CB3 to incorporate.
Zach, can you help him with that?
Well, I can send it, but it's on their website too.
Is it on the website?
It's on the
I'll look on the website.
That's very kind.
So,
I mean, it was in 2019.
Yes. My concern is really when you start to take a look at the additional traffic, what Worth Street is gonna look like, and St. James, and trying to find a way to accommodate all modes a little bit cleaner. So if Park Road is reopened and it's only one lane now in each direction because we've gotten 15 parking cars for the police, we've got a double bike lane, we've got more pedestrian access, that's awesome. We have bathrooms somewhere. But what does it look like for Worth Street? And what does it look like when the BBJ is open? And they've had talks about closing parts of Baxter and other things that are really critical to circulation for small businesses and for people just coming in and out.
No, yeah, that's all incorporated in the future no action. So we will be able to directly compare all the scenario options with the future, with all that development, with all that change, to be able to have a conversation over what is like a change, either positive or negative, for any intersection within the study area, which includes Worth, St. James, Park Row, all those intersections.
And is Rose always going to be closed?
Our traffic study, the direction we were given was to study Park Row reopening, which is only Park Row. So any inclusion or change from that would require further conversations.
Even for bike lanes on Rose to provide additional bicycle access back and forth?
Bikes, probably not. That would just need to be a conversation with counterterrorism and PD. When we installed the bike lane on Park Row, there was a lot of conversations leading up to that. So any additions throughout the security zone would require conversations, but probably not a traffic study.
It would be great to have a conversation, because I think driving everybody specifically to Park Row and Pearl, when there's a closed street that only has access for police cars, fairly safe street, I would say, would be great for bicyclists and pedestrians to have it be a more improved way to be able to connect back and forth. I'm not looking for one way, I'm looking for many ways. So you could get around to Gotham Park from the back around Rose Street. And whether, and how, when we take a look at all of this, how that affects that would be really nice to see. A lady in the background.
You know,
I'm sorry, can I?
excuse me,
There's it's not the 2019 study, it's the 2009 study, that.
Nine, did I say 19? Okay,
yeah,
sorry,
2009.
fine. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Can you read that? There's a statement that was left by someone who had to leave early.
Okay.
I will read it. Okay. On behalf of Open Plans, I'm writing to share our support and enthusiasm for the Chinatown Connection's planning process goals and progress to date. At Open Plans, we are both a nonprofit with a mission to promote a people-first street culture that prioritizes community, active mobility, and connection, and a Manhattan Community Board of One stakeholder located at Broadway and White Street. I would specifically like to highlight the proposal's focus on art, lighting, sidewalk creation, repair, and general safety improvements. As an organization, we believe all New Yorkers should have a safe and accessible sidewalk, pedestrian crossings, art, and safe levels of illumination. We are pleased that Chinatown Connection significantly improves walkability and accessibility in one of the city's most densely populated neighborhoods. Chinatown's narrow streets and heavy foot traffic have long posed challenges to both residents and tourists, and we believe these improvements will create a safer, more connected, and therefore more vibrant neighborhood for everyone. We strongly urge the community board to insist that the relevant agencies implement daylighting and curb extensions at every feasible intersection. For example, implementing daylighting and shortening crosswalks will make intersections safer for the countless youth and seniors who traverse the area daily. Manhattan Community Board One supported this streetscape design intervention via a resolution, and this is a tremendous opportunity to create visibility for all street users. Furthermore, integrating green spaces and tree planting will beautify the area and contribute to environmental sustainability, helping mitigate the urban heat island effect and improve air quality. Finally, we urge the community board and agencies to consider how these spaces will be stewarded, managed, and maintained. Our recently released report, Framework for the Future, includes many recommendations that we would be happy to share with the committee at a later date. At this time, I'd like to emphasize that the city needs to commit financial resources to support the beautification and maintenance of local public spaces, including Chinatown Connections, for it to reach its maximum daily potential. In closing, we are here as an enthusiastic resource to the committee and the community board as you consider this project. Best, Jackson Blunt.
You're up in New York, so.
Yeah,
It's fair.
Can I follow up on a couple of things? Number one, just regarding the bike thing on Madison, just FYI, the Tween Avenue of the, no, well, so Rose turns into Madison. So on the map, it says Madison. Because Rose ends at Avenue of the Finest. So between Avenue of the Finest and Pearl Street, that is no longer, that's like all gated NYPD area, just FYI.
Wouldn't it be nice if it was open?
Just pointing out that it is gated NYPD area. Question for you. You mentioned the artwork that's going on the fence at Frankfurt Street. How long is that fence going to be up? And why?
We don't have a timeline on the fence. I can't speak for our bridges division over the long-term plans for that space. But we would need further conversations over what happens there.
I thought I saw that some on the drawing, but I'll have that conversation offline. Okay. Regarding bathrooms, I know that you mentioned that it would be like a paying bathroom. Is that another one of those like pay a quarter thing? Because I mean, I don't know, like, I don't even carry money. I have like my watch and my credit card, but I don't know that people will be able to utilize them if you have to pay for them. And as you know, we have been pushing to install multiple stall toilets in the awesome, a la Governor's Island model, and where you can have 7 fixtures per trailer, and you can have multiple trailers. We would love, wait, no, I was told I had to wait my turn, so now I'm speaking. And so, but you said I had to wait. I waited patiently, so let me finish.
Chop,
please.
people.
And so, we would love to have multiple trailers, I'm just gonna say that publicly, that are free to the public to utilize, that would be manned and staffed so that the resupply of everything is constant and the cleaning of everything is constant. And we would like to install it as a plaza partner so that, in case it has any problems with your, exclusive contract, it would be removed if we are ever not your plaza partner anymore. And so That's what we are aiming for. We think that would actually answer the demand in terms of the volume of use that you're looking for, rather than like a pay and then one single fixture per unit, and we'd have to have a whole farm of them, to address the demand that we would have in this location. So that's one thing. Just so you guys know, the bike lanes on Park Road don't actually connect to the bike lanes on the Brooklyn Bridge, just in case anybody's wondering. I think that was mentioned earlier. They don't connect. One goes on a totally different level and direction than the other. And then the last thing was just, while we're talking about safety and streets and all of that, and I know this isn't part of Chinatown Connections, but I'm really curious as to why, which is the intersection of Pearl Street, between Frankfurt and Avenue of the Finest, because that is literally where all of the off-ramps and on-ramps sort of merge with, you know, with our streets. And it is like a block long of very messy, not well signaged, crossings that is incredibly dangerous enough to require 2 to 3 traffic enforcement officers every day. So like simultaneously. So, I feel like this is honestly one of the most dangerous intersections other than Kimla, which also is really frightening. I wonder why this was not put in there, and can we get it in there? Because those are the two sort of nodes where every time you're crossing a street, you sort of feel a little bit like you're taking your life into your own hands, you know, and I feel like they should both get some attention.
Yeah, I think we acknowledge that that is a very complicated and congested and confusing intersection. I think just for the reason it wasn't included in Chinatown, we were really focusing on the efforts coming out of the DRI. So we, you know, consolidated efforts, created one project. There are thousands of intersections around the city that need help, and we have to get to them when we get to them, and KML came to the surface because of the DRI funding, the state partnership. Not to say that we will never do anything at Frankfurt and Pearl, and we can take that back to our other planning groups to start looking at it, but there's needs everywhere, and we're constantly where to work.
Right. Just want to point out it's a federally classified historically disadvantaged community, and you do have 3 traffic enforcement agents there simultaneously for a reason. So I guess if there's another person that's 4, then I understand. But that's a lot for one intersection.
So Betty, is your committee ready, Rosa? Oh, I have.
Was it? They have to be very quick. There's somebody online that's still waiting, and I still haven't asked my questions. But anyway, if you guys.
Can we apply the?
And I'm going to say that,
I think his hand's still up from previous, I think.
well, I don't know if you want to speak with Triple. Is your hand still up or is it up again?
And it went down.
Can we apply our 2-minute rule? Because it's getting late.
Well, and are we gonna,
I personally don't want to do a resolution. But I want to hear from people who feel it's very important to do that, because it'll be next month. It won't be done at this meeting. Because I think it's complicated enough that really it needs to wait till December. It's not that time sensitive anyway.
is it time sensitive? I mean, that's.
Are you looking for a resolution?
What is the resolution for? Just that we approve the.
It's about feedback, because this is the only public forums that they present in. So if you're gonna give them feedback, you
Then let's
do
do
it.
it next December, because I haven't asked my.
Is that timely enough for you?
It's just very different.
I mean,
May I ask a point of information? Is this feedback for things he should consider in the traffic study?
It's
In addition to what the DOT's.
It's feedback
Standard
for
processes?
everything that we've talked about. It's,
Most of these things have been brought up before. There wasn't much new that's been said. And a lot of this is going to have, came out, people from CB3, which are going to say it again next week.
I don't care if it comes out in both, Betty. The key is to provide the feedback. And if this is the only opportunity through a community board level, because the other meetings are not public, they're private. There's no no offense intended, there's no transparency. This is the public agency coming to the community board. So if we're gonna give feedback, that they take with them, we should summarize it. If it's not this month, it could be next month, but we should listen to the recordings and make sure that we say, here are concerns that were brought up, here are concerns that we want to address, here's things that we'd like to see in the future. I think that that's important as what we say for public. Doesn't have to be tonight, but
I'll say it's definitely
Yeah.
not gonna be tonight. I see how tired everyone is.
yeah.
But anyway, since I haven't heard from Triple, and since it looks like he's sick, Doc, I will just make my comments, which I will not dwell on because I'll deal with them next month. But I want to at least mention them. And that is, all of these comments that have been made are assuming that cars have no danger, cars have no negative aspects to them, and everything is just wonderful. We just need more of them. After all this time, I am very concerned about one, if these traffic studies should also project how many more collisions and injuries are there going to be? We know that from the number of miles driven. How many more vehicle miles driven, traveled, is estimated is going to occur at a time when the state is trying to reduce vehicle miles traveled for reasons of climate change, and they just want to have less carbon emissions. I think those things should also be projected, not just, oh, it's really crowded here, so let's move them over here. The question is, are we moving more accidents? Are we creating more miles traveled? What kind of harms are there? What are the constraints that occur on other modes? I look at the space for bicycles, which has been in CB1 resolutions that it's inadequate. Well, if you give more space to cars, of course, you're going to take more and more away from these other groups. So the trade-offs have to be much more explained as to who's losing. Because there are always losers when someone's a gainer. And likewise, I agree that there seems to be no concerns about buses, which is why I'm glad there's been no conversation. It's not because they're unimportant, because there's no contention about that. I think same thing about emergency vehicles, making it smoother for them to make it more desirable. But the fact is, since they're not excluded, I don't think anyone's fighting for more space, but we need to find a way that's usable. But anyway, any other problems with wanting to get down?
A
Yes,
follow-up
please.
to that, you mentioned that the traffic study will account for or try to determine if you reopen Park Row, where cars would be diverted, where traffic would be replaced. Will it account for the possibility or in fact the likelihood that more cars would be introduced, that demand would increase?
Induced demand.
Yeah, there's definitely an assumption that creating a new roadway will create more traffic, not just shifted around. We also anticipate that there will be traffic that is outside of our study network who will now come into our study network. So we'll be able to quantify, or hopefully be able to quantify, where volume moves within the study network. So if it moves from St. James to Park Row, we'll hopefully be able to quantify what volume is coming from outside the study network, potentially Church Street, West Side Highway. Like we assume people will come to a newly reopened street. The more difficult one, which I can take back to our traffic engineering team, is truly additional, like people who weren't driving, who would drive before. It's a bit more difficult thing to like put firm numbers to. We can see if that's something we can project.
Yeah.
Because they'd still have to like go through the existing network. So it's a new street somewhat in isolation of an existing network. It's not like we're building like a new highway that goes through an entire town. So I think that it's a little bit different in scale from building the cross products or something. But we can take it back and see like how we estimate that. But we do estimate that there will be additional volume in the network that is currently not in the network.
Okay. Is part of the reopening scenario include opening the exit off the Brooklyn Bridge?
We are currently just studying reopening Park Row from Frankfurt to 4th Street.
Okay.
You mean the parking ramp?
Yeah, we were told by NYPD and DOT at, I think, the Chinatown Working Group that was a no-go, right? The closed Park Row exit.
There was no plan for that.
Yeah,
There's no plan for it?
no, to reopen that exit off the Brooklyn Bridge, no.
Is it maintained? There's cars that sit on it.
Yeah.
It's part of
It's NYPD uses it for parking. Certain vehicles.
Yeah.
Take it down.
I guess then it also comes to the question, in the study, is there ever a note? There's been a lot of discussion about the Brooklyn Bridge and about whether or not the Brooklyn Bridge stays for cars or is removed from vehicles and made for pedestrian and bikes only. There's been like, you hear rumors that people would love to see that. Is that being considered a data point, anything in your study?
No, if you're
Not that
talking,
I'm supporting it.
you're talking about the lower, like make way for lower Manhattan type
Mhm.
of stuff.
Mhm.
No, that would not be included since it's not a funded project. The cutoff for projects to include in traffic study is that it's funded and moving.
Okay.
Great, well, I think we can finally, everyone say thank you so much for your presentation and all.
Yes, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yes, and I thank everyone who attended for your input. So I'll certainly be listening to the tape when it's put online. And next month, we'll look at putting together a resolution. So,
One thing about the APTs, the APTs that are JC Deco and San Francisco, they don't cost money. And I would love for us to explore how they do.
I know like this much about the.
Yeah. Say it out
But
loud.
I think it's good.
I want to tell you that I got a report from the Manhattan Borough President's Office, that in fact, in the report, the DOT has already listed one on Park Row as well as one on Center Street, that they are considering the APT. So it's not that they aren't being considered, and
Yeah.
they're already in an official report that the DOT has provided.
In assuming that they would be considered, I'd like to have it considered to not cost a quarter. Because one time I was trying to use one and I was like really like trying to figure out where to get a quarter from.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't.
And then I just found
Yeah.
a whole.
Yeah.
Unless you've got Apple Pay, like.
Yeah, no.
But the bathrooms in San Francisco are essentially the same and they don't.
I tried to use the one at Madison Square Park.
Okay. Are we ready? Are we done?
First of all, I didn't have a.
Are we adjourned?
Yes, we're adjourned.
Thank you.